commissioners for hosting this conference, to the staff for the work that you've done, and we're delighted to participate and look forward to continuing participation. Is this on?
See, that green light has to come on, so push that. There you go.
Thank you to the commissioners and to the staff for all the work you've done to get us to this point. We look forward to continued participation going forward. Almost 2 years ago, a petition was submitted to this commission from Connect New York Coalition of consumers, labor organizations, elected officials, state and local from across the state. And the petition asks the commission to take a look at, is the light touch, or I would call it deregulation, working for all consumers and for all businesses and all organizations, schools, libraries, that need to have access to, as you said, broadband and voice telephony to protect public safety, economic development, and all the benefits that come from broadband. And we have been looking for answers to the kinds of questions that you're looking at, and we want it to be a data-driven examination. The data, quite frankly, is hidden or not available. But when you look at the data and look at, is the deregulation, is the competitive framework working for all people in the state of New York, you see that there is a vast divide. And while many people are using their cell phones, that's not a substitute for a wireline connection. You need to have a wireline connection in order to have the kind of connectivity to do your homework, apply for a job, access the vast information on the internet. I'm going to cite just one statistic that shows why you need both a wire and a wireless. The FCC, as this PSC concluded, that these are not substitutes, these are complementary. And they looked at a survey. People with home wireline broadband use 57 gigs a month. People with smartphones use 1.9 gigs a month. In other words, if your kid is going to be doing their homework, if you're looking for a job and have to fill out job applications, if you're uploading your photos, if you're downloading videos, and multiple people are doing that in the home at the same time, or at school, or in the library, you can't rely just on a smartphone. So we can't start with that chart that you show. We need to have wired connections. And what's happening in the state? 10 years ago, Verizon announced, we're going to build an all-fiber network, and began to get cable franchises to create the economics and the regulatory environment for investment in their all-fiber network. And they began redeploying many of our members, some of whom I want to recognize as being so interested in this issue, both for themselves and their families and their neighbors, that they've come here today. And so thank you very much for being here. The real experts about what's going on in the telecom industry here in New York. Began to be redeployed to building the FiOS. And then in 2010, there was an announcement that the FiOS deployment was going to stop. And the impact has been that upstate New York, eastern Long Island, and many of our rural towns are dependent upon one provider, are dependent upon Verizon's copper network for their landline service. And this landline copper network is deteriorating, is falling apart before our very eyes. And as we go on, I brought some pictures to demonstrate that, and I want to share those. When we asked for some information from the commission and got a freedom of information, we looked at some of the data that unfortunately is hidden from public view. And this is the kind of information that needs to be examined in an on-the-record evidentiary hearing where we can cross-examine each other and really look at the information and be data-driven in policy. Consumer complaints exceed the PSC's benchmark every single month over the past 3 years, since 2012. Trouble reports in wire centers, half of them exceed the PSC's benchmark. Even for the small group of customers called core customers, low-income, disabled, elderly, for whom there's reporting of out-of-service recovery within 24 hours, even there, the benchmarks aren't met about a quarter of the time. So something is seriously wrong, and this needs to be examined, but the light touch deregulatory approach is not protecting these customers. And without competition, and as we know, competitive markets drive investment where you make the most money. It's the responsibility of this commission to ensure that everybody is protected and has access to quality communications. So if competition is in the lucrative markets, and we know even in some places that isn't true in the city of New York, where the FiOS bill has not met the franchise obligation. But certainly, it's the obligation of this commission to collect the data and examine whether the current light touch policies, which we believe are not working, are protecting everybody in New York.